This movie exists.
Oh, come on. Of all the movies you can say this for, it's this one? Where was the sin for The Last Airbender, for example?
26 seconds of snow goes.
Dude, 26 seconds is too long now. I mentioned this in a previous video, but what is the point of counting the amount of time the logos last if you think logos being in front of a movie is a sin?
Man, could this beginning be any more Harry Potter?
Excuse me, what? How is this like Harry Potter? Because those movies were also produced by Warner Brothers? Because they're zooming into clouds? I would have given it to you if the music sounded similar, but Danny Elfman's style is entirely different from John Williams, or I guess any of the Potter composers.
Over 3.5 minutes of confection conception opening credits. If I wanted to know how chocolate was born, I'd take a trip to Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Hey man, opening credits are cool, and it's something we don't see quite as often as we used to. And with both this and the logo sin, you're acting just as impatient as Veruca right now.
This Charles Dickens meets Dr. Seuss house appears to be run down, except it was obviously built this way. So there's no way this door exists if it's not specifically designed to go into this door frame.
You mind explaining this point? You literally admitted this house looks run down, but then tried to say that it was obviously built this way. So, which is it?
Evening, buckets.
Evening.
Movie pays homage to the original film's 4-person bed. An awesome image, but entirely impractical. Where did Grandpa Joe and Grandpa George even put their legs? And do we even want to know?
Ah, yes, because that's the biggest plot hole in this movie instead of gum that expands a girl to the size of a giant boulder and literal teleportation. Also, this isn't an homage to the original film. This is something from the book that both movies were based on, so it's simply being book accurate. Saying this is referencing the original is like saying the new Dune movies were referencing the 1984 version simply because they both have giant sandworms, even though they came from the Dune books as well.
The man was a genius.
If he can do the we've seen so far, I think the word Grandpa Joe is looking for is wizard, or based on the way Depp plays the character, possibly Satan?
But genius works too. Joe is talking about Wonka creating seemingly impossible candy, and that sounds genius to me. Wizard works too, but you're trying to say that Joe's description is inaccurate, which it isn't.
Grandpa, don't make it gross.
I'm with Charlie. Why would Grandpa Joe share that part of the story? I don't think getting riled up in the 4 poster is a good idea.
That's the joke.
Fickelgruber started making an ice cream that would never melt.
So wait, the not melting ice cream was actually invented and sold? And Grandpa Joe shouldn't be talking about it as if it's some big revelation.
You literally just played a scene of spies stealing recipes in The Last Sin.
They began sending in spies to steal his secret recipes.
I'm not the most up-to-date on my sweet treat spycraft, but in general, wouldn't you rendezvous somewhere slightly further away from the very chocolate factory you were spying on?
The movie is saying that Wonka created it, and then some people stole it and started selling it. But it's okay that you missed this minor plot point. It's not like it leads to the factory getting shut down or anything.
But then, who's running the machines?
Nobody knows, Charlie.
It certainly is a mystery.
Not as big of a mystery as how no one ever f***ing told Charlie any of these stories before.
I mean, these stories had to have been told at some point, right? Why not now?
I'd give anything in the world just to go in one more time and see what's become of that amazing factory.
Grandpa Joe was foreshadowing so hard right here, he might start smelling toast.
Stop sending foreshadowing, please. It's literally a good thing in storytelling.
Nothing's impossible, Charlie.
Senile character suddenly becomes lucid, just in time to give sobering words of encouragement cliche. Also, this all seems like strange motivation for something that hasn't even happened yet. Charlie's family seems to be creating this goal for Charlie to get in Wonka's factory even before the golden ticket news has been announced.
Okay, so, even though they don't know about the golden tickets, they can still wish for Charlie to go in. I'm struggling to see your point.
I'd take a good Danny Elfman score as much as the next guy, but sometimes I get the feeling he's just been using variations on the Men in Black score for every movie since 1997.
That's not unique. Many composers tend to reuse their work a lot. John Williams' Harry Potter score sounds similar to Hook. Hans Zimmer made some music in Gladiator that literally sounds exactly like Pirates of the Caribbean. This is a normal thing is what I'm saying.
Dear people of the world.
The world? So did the delivery boys ride those Vespas around the entire world to post these notices in one night? What kind of Santa sleigh bull is that?
Why are you assuming these guys went around the world on these bikes? I'm extremely sure that someone went to airports and flew to other places they couldn't reach with those. And at least there are multiple guys going around the world, unlike Santa being the only person on that sleigh.
Also, where did that massive staff come from? They're not Oompa Loompas, but Wonka trusted them to deliver all these notices, and the chocolates with the golden tickets, even though he swore off humanity years ago.
Hang on. These are not the same guys who delivered the golden tickets. That would be the trucks that we saw at the end of the opening credits. kids. Which brings me to my next point. Wonka very likely prevented these people or the truck drivers from going inside the factory and just had the candy and notices delivered to them while they were outside, therefore they couldn't steal any recipes, which is the reason he swore off humanity. Dadgum, how can you not figure that out?
One of these children shall receive a special prize beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You're giving them the factory, right? I think you may be selling my imagination short, Wonka, because I totally just pulled off imagining that.
Oh, don't lie to me. You couldn't even imagine what I just did in The Last Sin. The only reason you're saying this is because you've either seen this movie before or you saw the Gene Wilder version.
Haha, I get it. Kid's fat and loves chocolate. But you're telling me his mother wouldn't clean the chocolate off his face before he goes in front of the cameras?
I think that's part of her characterization. The fact that she allows her son to get away with eating so much candy, so why would she care about cleaning him? Also, even if she did clean him, he's eating chocolate right now. So that's probably where the mess is coming from.
That man spoils his daughter, and no good ever comes from spoiling a child like that.
Someone hasn't been keeping up with the Kardashians.
Advocating for the Kardashians for any reason whatsoever.
What's the point of this tension-filled fake-out reveal? Is there a single human watching this movie that doesn't know that Bucket Boy is going to eventually get a ticket?
Since the movie has characterized Charlie as a kind-hearted kid who's down on his luck, that means the audience most likely wants him to get a ticket. So this is done to put the audience in Charlie's shoes. He wants the ticket, but is then disappointed when he doesn't get it at first.
You ungrateful little
Jesus, does Mr. Buckets have Beats by Dre sound-canceling abilities in his hands? Charlie should still be able to hear at least some of Grandpa George's tapestry of profanity.
I mean, it's not like he silenced it entirely, as even the audience could hear him shouting despite not being able to hear what words he was saying. I wonder why he didn't play the audio from the movie.
Well, it's a good thing you're going to a chocolate factory, you ungrateful little
That question is...
Oh, for the love of Roald Dahl, how many times do we need to go through this disappointment nonsense? We've spent the first 30 minutes of this movie on golden ticket fake-outs, poverty porn, and being narrated at. Can we get to some chocolate factoring already?
You realize this movie is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, right? Meaning it should focus on Charlie as well as the Chocolate Factory? Granted, the 1971 film focused more on him than this one, but still.
One Wonka with the scrumptious fudge mellow delight, please.
Charlie finds $10 in the snow, and his first thought is to buy a third candy bar, even after overhearing that the last ticket was already found. No worries, Charlie. You've got a family of 7 in a one-room shack, eating cabbage water for every meal. But you go right ahead and buy some more chocolate.
You're telling me, if you're a kid, that you wouldn't immediately want candy after finding money? And it's only $10! How much would that really help his family?
This whole puppet carousel is the perfect metaphor for this movie. A fake plastic reproduction that's annoyingly loud and garish and ends up completely going down in flames.
Jeremy would be excellent at singing CinemaSins.
Isn't that just magnificent?
Where exactly did Wonka come from if the entrance to the factory is right in front of them? Also, wouldn't there be at least a murmur from the crowd behind the gate from seeing Wonka for the first time in ages?
Two things. Firstly, it's possible that there's another door that we didn't see, or maybe Wonka was outside before they came in and hid until this moment. There are a few possibilities to explain this. Secondly, how do you know there weren't murmurs from the crowds? Just because we didn't see that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Or are you suggesting that we should hear them? If so, do you see how huge this yard is? Not to mention the puppet show is pretty loud. This sin is incredibly stupid.
Good morning, Starshine. The Earth says hello.
If you listen closely with the right kind of ears, somewhere in the middle of that line, you can hear the exact moment the world had had enough of Johnny Depp's nonsense.
You are a few years too early. This was 2005, and Depp would later star in 2 pirate sequels that were beloved by the general audience. And he also starred in Rango and was great there. And while I haven't seen Sweeney Todd yet, I've gathered that he was pretty good there too. No, I'd say it was the 2010s when some people started to get sick of him, with stinkers like Alice in Wonderland, Dark Shadows, and especially The Lone Ranger, which is when we realized he was just playing Jack Sparrow in literally every movie.
And the rest of you must be their
Parents.
Yeah. Moms and dads. Dad? Papa?
I cannot begin to tell you how quickly and forcefully I would remove children from this man's presence.
Oh, really? Coming from the same lolcow who seems to have a thing for Hermione Granger when she isn't 18 despite being a grown adult and had a thing for Jasmine even though she's 15? Sit down, Drake. We don't need to hear from you anymore. Also, yes, Wonka's not good at socializing. That's always been part of his characterization.
Would you like some chocolate? Sure. Then you should have bought some.
But why? You're literally in a chocolate factory. Pretty sure that was the one thing you didn't need to bring.
Jeremy just sent a kid who eats candy all day for bringing candy. It's how he's characterized, which means it isn't a sin.
Also, the movie is deeply committed to us hating every single character that isn't named Bucket. I don't care how much you like good old Charlie. That is a lot of assholery to sit through.
Isn't the fact that these kids get their comeuppance some of the most memorable parts of both this and the original film?
Come with me and you'll be in a world of imitation.
I disagree strongly.
This is some of the most visually appealing stuff in the whole film, and the chocolate river actually looks edible. Also, it's not trying to imitate the 1971 film. It's an alternate adaptation of the original book, similar to what the new Harry Potter TV show is. Also, Jeremy sings in a video cliche.
I understand they had to make these kids unlikable, but Tim Burton went way over the top with this shit. I mean, if you're gonna remake this shit, why not give these characters a tiny bit of nuance, instead of doubling down on the assholeitude?
Nuance? For kids that are going to suffer comeuppance that is supposed to be satisfying to watch? Can't say I agree with you there.
Oompa Loompas.
Imported, direct from Loompa Land.
What the f would Wonka have done if he didn't happen upon a sudden and conveniently subservient workforce?
Something else. Next question.
Hornswogglers and snozwangers, and those terrible wicked wangdoodles.
What are the nicknames for my penis? I'll take overactors named Johnny for 500, Alex.
Jeremy says boner.
I'm more willing to buy that Wonka learned the Loompa language and could communicate with them than being able to acquire all the passports and documentation it would take to get them back to his factory.
My guy, he's friggin' Willy Wonka. He can do whatever he wants to do.
Hey, little boy! My chocolate must be untouched by human hands.
That doesn't seem like a great marketing strategy.
Think for a second. If Augustus eats the chocolate out of the river, it could lead to cross-contamination, which means it can't be eaten by others.
Also, why the hell didn't Wonka tell them that from the beginning? There was one fucking rule.
Because one shouldn't have to be told that.
Augustus Gloop, the great bakery nincompoop.
Why do all the Oompa Loompas look the same?
That's racist.
Why are they miniature humans?
That's ableist.
Where did they find their love for musical theater?
Why question them enjoying musicals and not being a Philistine like you in that department?
Why are they wearing full-body latex uniforms?
To keep themselves covered up when working with candy, unless you want them to be in their birthday suits like in the book.
And why do they write songs like a 5th grader trying to figure out what rhymes with poop?
Jeremy, I know you don't do much reading, but nincompoop tends to mean someone who's foolish or stupid. In other words, it sums up you and CinemaSins in a nutshell.
I do say that all seemed rather rehearsed.
Like they knew it was gonna happen.
As if we needed more reasons to hate them, these snozwangers would be excellent at CinemaSins.
You guys heard that, right? Jeremy Scott just admitted these awful people would be excellent at CinemaSins. Why are 9 million people subscribed to this channel again?
Wakanda forever.
Arbitrary cinematic universe reference.
Now, on with the tour.
They're still going on the tour after all the Augustus Gloop went down. These people deserve whatever saw-like torture device falls on their heads.
Which is the point, no?
God, why does everything in this movie take forever to happen?
That was almost word for word what I say whenever I do a 20-minute video.
Look, 1% of Tim Burton's imagination would kick the shit out of the rest of the world in an imagination battle. But this seems a little overboard, even for him.
I'm gonna let you finish, but have you seen Batman Returns? I'm saying this as a fan of that movie, but that is way more Tim Burton than Batman. It's ridiculous. Okay, continue.
Sure, Wonka would have an extravagant boat, but wouldn't he pick something that fit better with the theme? What the f does a dragon have to do with any of this?
It does fit the theme, because that's not a dragon, it's a seahorse.
Movie's antagonist in a post-2000 rehash gets an origin story even though it doesn't need one and no one asked for one cliche. Also, it's completely counterintuitive that this movie is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, when it's much more Wonka-centric than the first one. I know it's supposed to be a more faithful adaptation of the book, but you know how we feel about that shit around here.
I was with you until you brought up the book. First of all, this isn't a good example of this movie being a better adaptation, since these flashbacks to Wonka's childhood are completely unique to this movie. And second of all, continuing your stupid mantra of the books don't matter. Sir, like half the movies we have wouldn't exist without books, so shut up.
Caramels. They'd get stuck in your braces, wouldn't they?
Oh man, they had to drag poor Christopher Lee into this, didn't they?
Sending Sir Christopher Lee for any reason. That's worth a few extra.
Whipped cream.
And we can add animal cruelty for the sake of a visual pun to the growing list of reasons this factory would have been shut down ages ago.
Channeling your inner PETA is sinful enough, but suggesting the chocolate factory should be shut down shows you channeling your inner Mike TV, which is unforgivable.
This little girl, she sees the road. Chewing, 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 chewing.
I swear to the great gobstopper in the sky, the music in this movie makes the music in the Lorax look like Hamilton by comparison.
I don't entirely care for these songs, but suggesting their Lorax bad, that's a bit unhinged.
What's the special prize and who gets it?
The best kind of prize is a surprise.
The problem with Johnny Depp's portrayal is that it takes the beautiful, beleaguered but eccentric frustration of Gene Wilder's Wonka and turns it into nothing more than a case of a sociopath with severe arrested development. A take which steals all the joy of Wonka finding someone to finally take over the factory, and instead just makes us want to alert the proper authorities.
Listen, I'm not the biggest fan of Depp's performance in this, but I think it's less to do with the character and more so to do with I just don't like it. Regardless, there is a reason behind this. This version is actually more realistic than Wilder's version because Wonka has spent years alone in a factory with only Oompa Loompas to talk to, and I highly doubt he has interacted with kids very much. He's very awkward in this movie because he doesn't know how to interact with people properly, let alone children.
It's always fun to see a kids movie turn into a straight horror film. Seriously, bring on Squirrelsperia. At least it would be interesting.
Does anyone actually think this is a kids movie? I don't know anyone who does, and I sure as heck don't think so. And I think the fact that this turns into a straight horror film debunks the idea that they made this film for kids.
Hello, Doris.
So the only female Oompa Loompas at the factory work in the front office? I knew Wonka was crazy, but sexist too?
How do you know it was Wonka's decision? If the women want to work as a secretary, then that's their right as women. Glad to know you're a bigger embarrassment for feminism than the extremists that gave a good cause to a bad rep. Go back to 2016 BuzzFeed Stupid Questions 4 videos where you belong.
Candy is a waste of time.
As is yet another flashback when we already get the point.
You're saying this as if this flashback shows us something we've already seen before, but that's not true. This particular one shows Wonka running away from his father, trying to come back, but Count Dracula had left by the time he returned.
Looks like New Line let Christopher Lee keep those Saruman powers for an extra year.
Arbitrary Lord of the Rings reference.
I want to pick a room.
Go ahead.
Even if we go by the assumption that Wonka set all this up ahead of time, there are several things that still have to fall into place. Augustus has to be left on his own and start drinking out of and fall into the river. Violet has to take the gum bait, which might be the easiest one, but it still has to go exactly as planned. Veruca has to be interested enough in the squirrels to go down and get herself thrown down the chute. And Mike has to ask to pick a room, it happens to be the TV room, and he has to get the idea to transport himself. Wouldn't it be easier to just get them all in the factory, have them decide who's the last man standing, like the Joker did in The Dark Knight?
All of what you just said is based on the assumption that Wonka planned all of this, and we have no evidence to suggest that. I'm pretty sure what the movie is trying to say is that Wonka just wanted the kids to figure out their own ways to get into trouble, and he wouldn't do anything to stop them. And besides, why would Wonka even care which kids go? By the end, he just picks Charlie simply because he was the last one still around. Your suggestion only works if Wonka wanted Charlie specifically, but there's no implication in the entire movie for that.
Cool, you invented teleportation. And also apparently levitation? How is this Johnny Depp's ego-sized candy bar floating?
Science fiction.
Well, why would I want to send a person? They don't taste very good at all.
For those keeping track at home, that is the third cannibalism joke in this movie, all of which were the same basic punchline and the same paucity of funny.
The irony of this statement is so hot, it would set the clothes on fire instead of smoothing them out.
Unharmed? What are you talking about?
Little known fact, Warner Brothers originally hired Edgar Wright to direct this sequence, but went a different way due to creative differences.
Oh, I get it. Because he's tiny like Ant-Man, and... wait, that's it. That's the only reason for this joke.
Also, it's great to get confirmation that the kids are okay, and the only residual issue they'll have to deal with is their horribly mutilated bodies.
Dude, Violet and Mike are the only ones with mutilated bodies. Veruca and Augustus are fine. They're just all filthy and need showers.
You got some Star Wars in my Willy Wonka movie.
You got some arbitrary movie reference in my CinemaSins video, Jeremy.
You staying for dinner, Willie?
Yes, please.
And this movie wraps up more cleanly and wholesome than a f***ing episode of Growing Pains.
Someone hasn't seen the final Harry Potter movie.
So they built an exact replica of their whole house in the factory?
Yes, because he's friggin' Willy Wonka. He does not appreciate you underestimating him. Actually, I'll let him tell you.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.